On October 25, 1994, a woman named Susan Smith walks into a police station in Union, South Carolina, her face streaked with tears, her story already circulating across local news. Her car, she tells police, has been carjacked at a traffic light by a black man. Her two young sons, 3-year-old Michael and 14-month-old Alex, were in the car. The man, she says, drove off into the night with her children inside. Within hours, her story becomes a national emergency. An all-points bulletin goes out. News helicopters circle above Union. Search parties comb the lakes and woodlands of upstate South Carolina. And across the country, Americans are on edge, watching a real-time tragedy unfold on their television screens. Susan Smith is photographed weeping, held up by her family, begging for the return of her sons. She is the face of maternal anguish. For 9 days, the search for Michael and Alex Smith and the black man who allegedly abducted them dominates national news. The case taps into deep racial anxieties in America: a white woman, a white child, a predatory figure described as a black man. The media, hungry for resolution, amplifies every detail. Police conduct roadblocks. Innocent black men are stopped, questioned, scrutinized. The narrative hardens. Somewhere out there, a dangerous black man has stolen 2 white children. The case becomes not just a missing children emergency, but a racial flashpoint. A moment when the nation's unresolved traumas around race, protection, and terror bubble to the surface. Then, on November 3rd, Susan Smith calls police again. This time, her confession is quiet, almost matter-of-fact. She did not tell the truth. There was no carjacker. There was no black man. She, Susan Smith, drove her car to a boat ramp on John D. Long Lake, put her car in neutral, and watched as it rolled into the water with her 2 sons strapped in their car seats. She had let the car sink. She had allowed her children to drown. She had then fabricated an entire narrative to explain their deaths, one that pivoted on race, on fear, on the nation's deepest anxieties. In the space of a 9-day news cycle, the story America had been told, the story that had galvanized a nation, that had activated racial panic, collapses entirely. The reason it emerges is brutally simple and brutally human. Susan Smith wanted her freedom. She was involved with a man who did not want children in the relationship. She was 23, she felt trapped, she wanted to escape the constraints of motherhood. Her solution was to drown her own children and construct an elaborate lie to avoid responsibility. Evidence quickly emerges that undermines her story. Forensic evidence, testimony from people who knew her, surveillance footage, and a videotape of her own confession. All of it painting a portrait not of a victim, but of a perpetrator who had committed one of the most horrifying crimes imaginable. Susan Smith is tried for murder in 1995. The trial is explosive and heartbreaking. The jury is shown videos of her confessing. Evidence is presented about her emotional state and her motivation, and over, the horror of what she has done is reinforced. The jury deliberates, and while prosecutors push for the death penalty, the sentence comes back as life in prison, with parole eligibility only after 30 years. Susan Smith is incarcerated at Leith Correctional Institution in South Carolina, where she remains today. In November 2024, 30 years after the murders, she faced the parole board for the first time and was denied. She becomes eligible again in November 2026. But the damage to the national conversation is irreparable. What makes the Susan Smith case distinct in the landscape of American true crime is not the horrifying nature of the crime itself, infanticide, murder, but the way the crime was framed, the lie that was constructed, and the racial anxieties that were weaponized in the service of that lie. For 9 days, a false narrative about a predatory black man circulated through the American media. For 9 days, black men in Union, South Carolina were subjected to police scrutiny based on a completely fabricated description. For 9 days, the nation's racial paranoia was activated. When the truth emerged that the perpetrator was a white woman, that the crime was infanticide, not abduction, the media narrative shifted only slowly. Some outlets continued to sympathize with Smith. Others grappled with the implications of how easily racial panic could be weaponized by a false accusation. The Susan Smith case became a case study in how race shapes the way crimes are reported, investigated, and remembered in America. Susan Smith remains in prison. For now. Her case has become a reference point in conversations about race, media, and criminality in America. The image of her weeping at a press conference, an image taken after she had already drowned her children, circulates in retrospectives and documentaries. The case serves as a mirror held up to American society. It reveals, uncomfortably, how quickly racial fear can override reason. How a lie, if structured around the right anxieties, can be believed by an entire nation. And how the murder of children by a white mother can be met with a kind of cultural ambivalence that the murder of children by a black father would never receive. If you want the next case file, subscribe. New files unlock every Tuesday.